And we are live. Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to Forever Sports. And tomorrow is team announcement day for Rassie Erasmus and the Springboks, where we will get an idea. Well, we'll get the final idea of exactly what is going to happen this weekend with regards to team selection, which players are going to be involved, potentially 7-1 splits, 6-2 splits. No, for example, debuts and waiting, as far as we understand. But it's going to be a very interesting team announcement, given the fact that it is such a depleted squad. And, unless there's been a late addition, for example, that we haven't informed of, there's things like, for example, only 8 backline players available because of so many people having to return back to their franchises, both European franchises, Japan clubs, the URC franchises, from South Africa, for example. So a lot of people have had to basically leave the squad, and we got confirmation on Monday which the players were. And I mean, for example, it's things like Edward van der Merwe, Grant Williams, like Edward van der Merwe leaving on the back, Kurt Lawrence, for example, having left, not having a Cheslin Colby, for example, means that we're very short on certain positions. And we haven't been told as of yet that Rassie Erasmus or the Springboks have drafted anybody in. And if you look at, for example, some of the social media stuff like that, also doesn't indicate that there are new sort of players in and around the squad. So it's quite difficult to sort of know if there have been any sort of late call-ups, because there hasn't been officially anything added from a press release point of view. So we kind of have to go with what we've got to decide when it comes to sort of deciding our starting 15 for tomorrow. And I think that, obviously certain positions will very much pick themselves, just simply because there aren't other options. For example, Sasha Famagomazulu is the only out-and-out flower half in the squad. So the only reason he wouldn't be flower half tomorrow is if they go with Damien Williams at flower half, in which case Sasha pretty much has to go full back. And you're sitting there thinking we're very unlikely to do that. Not a lot of options, to be honest. And then I said, a lot of people say I'm being negative. I just don't think that this test needs to happen. I just think that if you look at the players not available for Wales, you look at the players not available for the Boks, more probably for the Wales than in the Boks. The Boks have used their squad so well over the year that this is whatever side you're going to pick tomorrow is still going to be a good squad. You look at the Welsh squad, however, and it's just not a particularly good Welsh side, and I don't think they're going to offer much of a challenge for the Boks on Saturday. I mean, you can be completely wrong, for example, but it just seems unlikely. And I think just the more you look at it, and the more the players are unavailable, the more look at, for example, the situation that Wales are in, and the fact that those Welsh-based regions won't have those players in a time where they're really talking about the fact that they are so light on players from a depth point of view. They're not going to have those players available for them for the URC this weekend, so that's going to be a massive impact on the Welsh franchises and their URC campaigns. It's all just a bit messy. However, we have got a test, and we have to basically try and pick our side based on kind of what we know. So we're going to start with the obvious question: who starts at number 1? Now, to be honest, there's only 2 options, and that is Ntuka Nkunu and Gerard Steenekamp. Now, last time I checked, Volkolo was designated in the matchday 23 to be able to play at number 1. So we're going to throw him into the poll, but he's not a loose head prop. He is a tight head prop. I personally would like to see him not play this weekend. I think he's played a lot of rugby. I think we know exactly what we're getting from him, and I think that he's one of the players that we can afford not to really risk or sort of play this weekend. I think, the Bulls, for example, would very much like to see him sit out and be rested for when they get their Champions Cup campaign underway the following week, which is going to be a very interesting Champions Cup. And make sure that you, by the way, have gone onto mypicks.app. You guys have gone and submitted your team prediction for this week, as well as start getting involved and start getting yourself organized for the Champions Cup, Challenge Cup. We will be posting our official links to the Forever Sports Champions Cup and Challenge Cup leagues, for example. You can go start creating your own internal leagues for those competitions and go and get yourself nice and organized so you don't come up. We've obviously still already got our URC league as well, so you can go get that. But let's get some votes going and decide who do we think is going to start in that number 1 jersey. Those are the props that are left in the Bok camp. No Thomas Toy, no Bowen Fenter obviously back at Edinburgh, Thomas Toy back at Bath. So we're down to just those 5 props. Obviously, we lost out Hendrik Wessels earlier, who I think would have played pretty much every single test had he not got that suspension. I suppose the only saving grace for him to a certain degree, not saving grace, but the good news for him is the fact that we did manage to package 5 games in. So those extra games they have eaten up into a suspension quite well. But he still has like another 5 games. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, especially when you think that James Ryan, by the way, has got 3 weeks for that challenge against Malcolm Marx. So it's pretty poor, in all honesty. But anyway, so those are our options. And as I said, I personally would like to see, of those 4, I would like to see Wilco Low sit out. I think he's played a lot of minutes. And I'd like to see the other ones, but I'm not sure we're going to go with that one. For example, are they going to bother giving minutes to Asante Clavicania if his hearing, which is supposed to happen in December, goes badly and he does receive a ban, which means that he might be out for a year, could be out a couple of years. I really hope he gets away with a bit of a slap of the wrist, and basically a bit of almost a warning, because the more you dive into it, the more that he did do his due diligence, but just trusted in medical help that was wrong. And it shouldn't have been wrong. He didn't go to a random doctor. But anyway, we're not going to go into that right now. So we're going to get some votes on this, people. Please do also smash like on the video. Let me know what your My Pick side is looking like as well. Christian said his as always. And gone with quite a similar team too. To be fair, I think a lot of people are going to be quite similar with regards to this team. Just because it's just not a lot of people left. I think the most difficult one so far to pick has been the Italian game. Because there's a full squad. And we knew it was going to be rotation, but what kind of rotation? And obviously we saw, an Ethan Hooker and Kenan Moody partnering up for the first time and the likes of that. So going to some of the comments, Candy says, Welsh team released earlier, decent enough 23, will be an interesting matchup. It's a 23 of potential. There's some nice players there, but there's just no real international pedigree. You go look at, you take away an Aaron Wainwright, for example, who's been around the block. And I just don't think there's enough in that side, which really makes me a bit worried. You look at the side and you take away Aaron Wainwright, he got 61 caps. Again, Thomas, I suppose, has got about 40 odd caps. But apart from that, Kieran Hardy, Rio Dyer, those are sort of your most capped players. Neither of those have ever been sort of sold on starters and played massive parts. If you look at, for example, the bench, there's only Callum Shee's got 16 caps, and Ben Thomas, everybody else have got basically less than 4 caps. So that Welsh bench is a disaster. It really is with regards to the international pedigree they have. And that's kind of more my point about why I think this game is very unnecessary. JJ says, you're right, we could have done without the game. Same for Wales, but it is what it is, so let's not harp on the uncontrollables. Let's get into our making our side, shall we? So we've got 15 votes, 80% going for Instituto. So let's get him into that side, shall we? And you're going to move into the hooker position. So who starts at number 2? Probably one of the only positions where we have genuinely 3 options, and that's only because Markham and Starden has become one these days. So you got option in Bongi Mbanambi, you've got Johan Krobala, and we're going to throw in a Marco van Staden as an option as well. So I do think he will start. I do think, well, he'll definitely be involved. Obviously, we need him to be involved. So it'll be good to see him back in a Bok jersey, because I think he's somebody who has had a really frustrating career where he's come through and had some fantastic moments. Maybe hasn't quite managed to have the consistency of getting a decent run and putting in those sort of performances and get him into the box setup. I mean, you saw, for example, Jan Hendrik Westers kind of leapfrogged him. Obviously, due to injury, Bone Fenter's currently now sort of leapfrogged him. So he'll be frustrated at the fact that he hasn't been able to play much this season and this year, and he'll be desperate to try and make a point this weekend. And good to see him back into the mix. I mean, Rassie Erasmus kept naming him as a player who is kind of injured, but he's never been a constant in the side itself. So go and vote for who you think is going to start in the number 2 jersey. Dean says, hi, Steve, how are you? Very well, Dean. Thank you very well. It's Wednesday evening. We're halfway through the week. The Lions are back this weekend. The Proteas hammered India. So I'm on cloud 9 here, to be perfectly honest. Very, very chuffed with how life is looking at the moment. So long may that continue. From a sporting point of view. But yeah, let's try and see if we also get sort of 15% of the votes, almost up to 60 people watching. So please make sure you go and smash a like on the video. Make sure you go and, as I said, go and vote on it as well. Go and get that vote in so that we can get our second player to the side. We've got about 16 odd votes. I did want to try to get to 20, and yeah, once we get there, then we will close off the thing and add him to the team. I've done my team prediction. I put it out a little bit earlier. And yeah, I'm really hoping that I come good, because I lost my lead last week by 1 point. So I need to make sure I try and respond and get back to the top of that leading board. Bleeding Green says, I think there will be more experimentation in the backline rather than the forward pack for this test. Well, you just can't experiment in the backline. There's just no players to experiment in the backline. We've got 2 scrum halves. Apart from that, we've basically just got enough for the backline. If you look at who's left, and that's, I think, the frustrating. I mean, a lot of people talking about Sebastian de Klerk. We've actually received no information that he's actually even there. So a lot of people are speculating about him, but we've actually not gotten any confirmation that he's actually with the squad. Whether it's any social media stuff, there was no direct thing from the box to say that he has actually been called up. So as far as we understand, he's not there, which I've been trying to find out. I've been trying to find exactly what's happening. But literally, if you go look at all the press releases, the last time he was even mentioned in the Block press release was that he was on standby. So we're not sure if that's the case. Beanie Green says, that's what I'm saying. They're forced to use new players for the backs, but it's not really new players. It's just whoever's left. And we'll go to the backs in the main, but it's Damien Delendi, it's Andre Estes, it's Kanan Mood, it's Ethan Hooker, it's Sasha, it's Damien Willems. It's a lot of the same players, because those are the only players left. But let's put Bongi Manambi in there. We've got enough votes over there, so we can throw in Bongi Manambi. Let's go to the poll, and let's say who starts at number 3. The options being Zachary Porthen, Asanate, and Klabakanye. And Volko Low. Those are your options at tighthead. And let's get those votes. Shall I get to over 20 votes here, people? And Kitson saying, is Seb de Klerk even in the squad? Haven't seen anything. None either. And there's been no official confirmation. So he very mild. He might be there. For all we know, he might be there. We have not been told. There's been no SA Rugby release that he is over there. There's been no confirmation from the Bulls that he's not available for this weekend. So the fact that everybody keeps speaking about him at this stage is speculation. There's no confirmation that he's there, and that's kind of what's going on. Even if you look at the I'm just even double checking the training video here, and I don't remember seeing Sebastian de Klerk involved. You can go look through the training video, for example, and it's unless I missed it when I initially watched it, it's kind of the same people. I'm having a double check here to make sure I didn't miss it. But there's Andre Esterhazen, there's Sia, looking at people in the background, it's Eben. There's Morning van den Berg that we know. Yeah, so even on that video, for example, which is about the only site we've got in there, there's no evidence of Sebastian de Klerk being over there. That's it. So, yeah, it's an interesting situation, and yeah, I mean, in that regard, when we get to the back line, I think it becomes quite straightforward who's going to be where, because you've got to kind of look at then who's left. Candy says, surely the Bulls would want to keep Seb in Pretoria to prep for UBB. Well, this is the thing, First of all, they've got Lions this weekend. I mean, come on. I mean, biggest weekend of the game. And Dean says, guys, what is your score predictions for this game? Yeah, she's apparently agreed between Akkers and Rassie. Well, if it is agreed that he can go over, we haven't been told of it just yet. So that would be quite a wild point of view if literally they tell us that he's over there tomorrow when the team gets announced. As I said, he could be there. He might be involved. But at this stage, we have not received anything official from the box that he is over there and that he is in contention to be involved. So that's the problem, and wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. It would not surprise me if the box have got him over there and just forgotten to tell us, to be perfectly honest. So that's a big possibility that he could be there and we just haven't been told. I like to go on exactly what's official, and I've gone and double checked every single press release, naming the players that aren't involved, naming the players who have remained behind, for example. And an interesting one that has remained behind, and it was picture getting off the plane, is Jean Klein, who's an option at number 4. So let's go through our lock options now. And I'll be quite frustrated. I don't know where I'm at, actually, and I'll tell you what I'm on about in a second. If we have flown somebody back up, I'll be quite frustrated to a certain degree if it's Sebastian de Klerk ahead of a Kwan Horn. I would love to see, if that's the case, if we need to fly somebody over, I would love to see like a Damien De Linde in at inside centre. So Damien Willemse at inside centre, start Kwan Horn at full back. So I think that's a position we need to worry about more than wing. Having said that, I'm really hoping the Kwan Horn is all good and ready to go over this weekend for the Lions. And we get the team announcement tomorrow, and I'm hoping that really we're going to see him there because I need to cook this weekend against the Bulls. So you decide who's going to start the number 4 jersey. I'm very surprised with John Clayton. John Clayton shouldn't really be there. I mean, Munster did not need to release him, so that's quite interesting in the fact that obviously we made the request and said, listen, we need him to play, and Munster basically said, yeah, it's fine. Who's Munster playing this weekend? Are they just basically saying that they can do without him for this weekend? They are playing Stormers, who are undefeated. It is a depleted Stormers side because obviously no Dane Willemse, no Sasha, no Kobus Reinach, no Ben Jason Dixon, no Zach Porthen, no... Who else is in the squad? I think that's about it from a Stormers perspective. Yeah, pretty much that. But it's still quite a lengthy, some big players that are missing from them. So I'm surprised that Munster have allowed John Clayton to stay with the side and be involved in the box. Maybe there's a bit of a Munster Rassie arrangement there, and they said, listen, come on, do us a favor, do us a solid over here. But yeah. So winning goals says maybe Rassie will give Moss a redemption game. Kenny says, yeah, fly Quan over. Bulls have Lions this weekend. No. That's the only reason I want him to stay, because I need him to cook against the Bulls. I need the Lions to come in and get the business done. Ironically, somebody, as I say, was talking about the Lions being such a disaster, Claude, and I cannot actually believe how we managed to lose to Zebra, because if we had won that game, we would actually be sitting basically ahead of the Bulls if we had beaten Zebra. I know it's a big what if, but that is one of the games you have to win. So ironically, the Lions, who have had a terrible start to the season, are still in 8th, 2 wins out of 5. And 3 points behind the Bulls. So if we win this weekend, we can go ahead of the Bulls. Yes, we're already very well behind Stormers, for example, but we're also 3 points ahead of Sharks. So it could be worse. Jean Clayton's got 21 votes, got 43%. So let's go and throw him into the number 4 jersey. And let's start Houston start. Who will start at number 5? Your options being Franco Mostert, Ruan Norkia. And I suppose, in theory, he's never started there, but we've got to throw in Ebenezer just from a voting perspective, shall we? Ned says the Bulls are going to absolutely cook the Lions. Bulls are going to win 56 points to 17. Well, if you're that confident, then go lock it on my picks. Remembering that the Bulls are without Gerard Stennekamp, Wilco Low, Jan Krabbelar, Ruan Norkia, Marco van Staden, Kanan Moody, Kirkley Orange, and that's just from a Bok perspective, let alone a couple of the other injuries that they have. So maybe the Lions, but I think the Lions are going to really miss Asnat and Klavikanya. Morning van den Berg we can deal with that because we've got generational scrum halves every single bloody where we look. It's pretty wild how good our scrum half depth is. But so I think in many ways we'll miss Asnati the most versus Morning van den Berg because we've got a Harsh and Peed, we've got a Nico Stain. We've got number 9s, thankfully. JGS says possibly play Moss at 7 or from the bench even and start Ben Jason Dixon. Yeah, well that's the thing. I think you've got in terms of your 7 cover, every single position has got somebody else who can cover it. There's no positions where nobody else can play there, but you'd need to reshuffle, and I'll talk about once we get through this team in terms of where we've got potential cover. So we're going to go with Franco Moss in the number 5 jersey, and let's now go and decide who starts in number 6 jersey. Who starts at number 6? Your options being Sia Khaleesi, your options being Kwagga Smith. If you're looking for who's actually available, what we've got, everyone that we've got confirmed is available is on my picks. We have also taken our people that they have confirmed isn't available. So I think it's 24, 25 players on there. Again, we don't know if there's been somebody added without them telling us. But we just can't. I can't just decide to put a player in if we haven't been informed. annoying that we're not being informed if that is the case. But yeah, unfortunately, we can't do much about that. Clint says, I'm late to the party. Ethan Hooker still with the box. He is indeed. King says, Oren says back at Loftus. He is, but he's got concussion. So I think the from the sounds of it, he wasn't going to be able to be available this weekend. He might have recovered. Be very annoyed if he does play, just because that makes the Bull side a lot stronger. Ned says, yeah, Pollard will play this weekend. Yeah, he has been sent back, as has... How many else the Bulls went back? No, it was just him from the Bulls. Sharks, Edel van der Merwe and Grant Williams have gone back. Who else was there? I think that was just the South African players that went back. So let's go and decide who's going to start. Everybody was pretty 50-50 between Siya Kolisi and Marco for starting. Jean-Andre, to be honest... It's difficult. I mean, I think that the whole Cash van Rooyen situation, my biggest problem is, and I'm not saying that we need to keep him, I don't think we get infinitely better if we sack him. I think he's maybe part of the problem, but I don't think we bring in, a different coach and all of a sudden this Lions side just completely turns it up and all our problems are saved. I think we've got a much bigger structural problem. In many times, the Lions have overperformed for where they are as a squad. Sometimes they haven't performed as a squad. So it's difficult. I'm very open to options. My biggest problem is, who are those options? If you're going to replace Cash van Rooyen, and if there's an option up there that's exciting and is a big trade up, great. I think that the support coaches are good. I think Ricardo Lopes has done a good job. I think Jacques Faris made a big difference. I think Julian Reddinghuis, for me, is the heir to Don Human's throne. I'm just not fully convinced that Ivan van Rooyen is the crux of the issues at Ellis Park, when players are eating hot dogs, for example, when we're losing every single player of our season, for example, and the likes of that. Right, so we're going to put Malcolm Verstappen into the number 6 jersey. Let's decide who's going to start in the number 7. Who starts at number 7? Your options are Ben, Jason, Dixon. That's your BG Day. BJD. Get there in the end. I'm going to put Ronald Kier as an option to start in the number 7 as well, as then always sort of Kwagga Smith is always an option, although I think Kwagga Smith will be a very important player off the bench this weekend with regards to a potential 7-1 split and the likes of that. So, Candice says, reckon we'll see Rassie turn hooker into Estes in 2.0. He's also a big boy. I think at this stage they'll more focus on trying to get him to be able to be a centre and a wing before they need to worry about converting him into potential forward. I was actually trying to think, what other players in the circuit right now around South Africa could kind of do that hybrid forward backline role? I'm trying to think of potential players who could fill that role. Obviously, I mean, we've seen, for example, the reverse. I mean, Swayze de Brain wanted to convert Chiva Diamani into a centre, and he said that he reckons that's where his future lies. And then he went to the Stormers and proved that number 7 was really his position. And he's been good for Racing, not been sensational, hasn't torn the league apart, but he's been solid. So now we got to decide on number 7, and then we get to number 8, and then I think we're going to pretty much select the easiest backline picks we probably can. So it's going to be an interesting one. Kenny says this weekend, maybe, but I just think that Ethan Hooker is so valuable under the high ball as a wing, for example. I think that's where, at this stage, I think he adds a lot of value. Andre Estes has never kind of had that skill set under the high ball, for example, or even that turn of pace. To be honest, Ethan Hooker's rapid, so maybe late stages of his career, if he slows down a bit, for example, he could go into that role. But it'll be interesting to almost do a show and decide, what kind of hybrid players could we see down the line. What other players? I mean, I think something, for example, maybe Renzo Duplessis could probably potentially play like a centre, the way he carries and the likes of that. Very, very quick around the park. So let's get those votes up. We can actually put Ben, Jason, Dixon, and everyone's sort of add those votes. Now we're going to have 3 options for who starts at 8. Who starts at number 8? Your options being, I'm going to put Siya Kolisi in there. I'm going to put in Jasper Wiese. And we're going to throw in Kwagga Smith. I don't see why it wouldn't be Jasper Wiese. There's no reason for that, to be honest. So those are the options over there. Going to the comments, Mikey Larry says, isn't the players going to be totally burned out playing these games and going straight back into the URC so quickly, Steve? Yeah, so there are mandatory rest periods that all, especially the South African players, well, the only South African players, have to abide to. So that's why you'll probably see somebody like a Ruan Nokia will probably get a month off in like a January, for example, maybe a February, where he has to be rested. They have to have mandatory downtime. And that's why we saw Thomas Satoy initially not involved in the box training camp, for example, in August, because he had to have downtime. So for some of these players, it is a lot. Remembering some of them didn't play URC, in terms of when they were after the rugby championship, they kind of had 2-3 weeks where they didn't play. So from that perspective, some of them have had that kind of rest. The big thing is it's a minutes thing. You kind of look at the full season and you kind of look at how many minutes are being played, and where they are with regards to that kind of workload point of view. So if you've got a player, for example, playing 20 minutes every game for 4 or 5 games in a row, that's very different from a workload perspective versus a player playing 3 games or 60 minutes. So they basically kind of look at your sort of seasonal workload, and then basically do it based on that. And then you have to have mandatory downtime, and there's only a certain amount of minutes you can play. So there is a cap on the amount of minutes you can play in a calendar year. Jasper Wiese, for example, when he was at Leicester Tigers and then came to the box, for example, I think he was the most played player, not paid player, but most played player in terms of the number of minutes he played in a calendar year was more than anybody else, and that was a massive issue. That then thankfully didn't really catch up to him. He managed to keep going, but that was where a big example of why they then had to sit there and say we need to be better about this. We need to have better structures and better policies. Right, the next question is, who starts at number 9? Kobus Reinach or Morne van den Berg? Those are the only options at number 9. Unless all of a sudden we've drafted in someone random. Maybe Harsham P's gone over there. Who knows? But yeah, Jean Klein will not play for Munster this weekend. He is in the squad, beating gold records. Ethan Adams, future hybrid. Not a bad shout. Max the Dark Lord says, one to start with hybrid model is Ethan Adams. There we go. Roscoe says, are there official caps for this game? I know it's up to Sorry, and if Japan counted, would imagine this does too. It's an international cap regardless, as per World Rugby. It is indeed a capped game, regardless of whether the fact it's still Springboks versus Wales. It's not like a South Africa A game versus, which maybe they should have done. Maybe they should have done a South Africa A game and maybe look to bringing in a couple of other players if franchises are willing to allow them to go. I think that the team will resemble a Springbok squad, but we are talking about 2 nations, and they're not the strongest teams. When you are missing, the Boks are missing, I think, without 12 players plus no energy vessels and the likes of that. So they are missing 14 to 15 main squad players. So it is very much a sort of second string squad at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot of first string players that are involved in it, but it's not your core sort of 36-man squad. Wales, very similarly, there are a couple of players you might start in your better Wales side, but also majority of the important and the big players play outside of Wales and aren't available this weekend. So Ross says, are there official? Net Records Moody's going to score 3 tries, and JGS says, yes, the Cats for sure. It's an official test match. So, yeah, there we go. So, in terms of number 9, we've got Morne van den Berg with 69%. So, we'll throw him into over there, and then we'll do a very difficult poll at who's going to start at 10 between Sasha and Damian Willemse. And this is what I mean by there aren't a lot of options at a lot of the positions. And I'm a bit worried, to be honest, but I suppose the thinking at the moment is hopefully that only one player can afford to get injured during the build-up of the week. And then we have to go in 8-0 split. Because Kobus Reinach can obviously cover wing. And that's the thing. So I suppose we've been quite tactical with regards to the players we have kept. So Kobus Reinach can cover wing if he has to. And did it pretty well, actually, previously. So you've got Kobus who can cover wing. You've got Damon Delaney who covers 12, 13, and if really needs to be, can go into the wing. You've got Caden Moody who covers 13, 14, and potentially 11. Ethan Hooker covers 11, 12, and if he has to, 13. David Williams covers 15, 12, and potentially and 10 is probably the big one. So, for example, let's say Sasha goes down injured on Friday. Damien starts at 10. You probably then have Kane and Moody starting at 15. Not ideal. Maybe. And then you've got, your Kubas Reinach on the wing. So I'd be very surprised if they haven't brought somebody in, but we haven't been informed of if they have. They need an outside back. They're desperate for an outside back. Kyan Horn, for me, is the obvious person to bring in. He covers wing and fullback, which are the two worry positions. Fly half, Damien Willemse can do a job, and if he gets injured during the game, Kyan Horn could play at fly half if he had to. That part could happen. I suppose Esterhuizen could cover fly half as well. Mikey Lewis, I wouldn't be surprised if Rassie picks a team none of us could have imagined him picking. What a great time to be a rugby fan. Jay says, I doubt Wales had a team below the box in mind. They're wanting to sell tickets and get in some money. And Onfamet says, so do you think we're going to have a 7-1 split? Well, unless they've added players to the squad without telling us, which they could very well have done, there just isn't enough backline players for it not to be a 7-1 split. So yeah, that's our number 10. Let's go to start. Who starts at 11? And your options pretty much are Ethan Hooker or Kane Moody. And this is also the biggest problem, They have to be our wings because we've only got Andre Estes and Damon Delende as our centre option. So Delende should probably start at 13. Unless, as we keep saying, they've dropped in players and without us being informed. Which I kind of hope they have to a certain degree. Otherwise, we couldn't be in a bit of trouble if we have a bad captain's run and a couple of players get injured. And it's not exactly somewhere you can put... I mean, look, captain's run, somebody could come over on Friday night. But jeepers, you don't want to come over on Friday night and suddenly be on a bench on Saturday evening. No. So... we are definitely playing. It's a big risk. It is certainly a big risk. We've sometimes had 28-man squads, for example, which aren't particularly big. But even then, you've got a back three cover, you've got a number 10 cover, you've got a center cover, for example, and. So your options at number 11 are Ethan Hooker or Kane Moody. We're gonna throw Ethan Hooker in there. No, that's not Ethan Hooker. We're gonna throw Ethan Hooker in there. Get there eventually. And now we need to do our inside center. Who starts at inside center? The options being Damien Delende, Andre Esterhuizen, and I suppose in theory Damien Willemse. But if you put Damien Willemse, we're gonna have to get creative with where he goes to full back and who's on the wing. Michael Harris says, I think Andre at 6 is a legitimate possibility. Delende on the bench. I mean, if you've got Andre started at 6, you've got Delende on the bench. I'm very interested to see who you're putting at centres, unless you're going to throw like Sia Khaleesi at inside centre. Maybe Quacker Smith at outside centre. There we go. Opposite says reckons Quacker at 12. But he says, don't think team will look like this. We'll see surprises. Well, I just don't see where the surprises come from, unless they've got more players in. Because I'll tell you right now, after we do this, who we haven't selected yet. And who's still available. And that kind of lays bare how small the squad currently is. And as he said we're probably going to train with 25 players. I'm not sure his 25th player is. As I said, I don't know who his 25th player, because when we've looked at it, there's 24 players left. So there seems to be a potential extra player coming in. But we haven't been told. Candy says, roll the dice and stick us Nati at 15. I'm in. You sold. You sold me. I'm in. Right, so we're going to put Andre Estes in at 12. We kind of have to. Who starts at 13? Again, bearing in mind your options are Damien Delende, Kane Moody, but bearing in mind we also need a wing. So that's my only thing. Unless there are new players in the squad, I just don't see how it doesn't become quite a... Your only other options are, Eben comes in, or Ruinokir comes in, and then number 4, 5, a Sia could start, a Quacker could start. Frank Moss could be started at 7, for example, ahead of Ben Jason Dixon. I'd be surprised. I think Zach Porth and Ben Jason Dixon both start. I think Ntutuka Nkunu starts. So I don't think that they can... I don't think there's enough players to really be that different. We could be in for big surprises, and you know what? If there are new players there that we weren't told about, you can't pick them on my picks. Nobody would have gotten those points anyway. but we have to deal with the information we've been given. JGS says, are Stormers and Sharks in Ireland already? Maybe a backline player or two could join the box for cover, seeing as they're already there. Yeah, so I mean, maybe tomorrow we're going to see, but they are playing at the same time. Munster's playing at, they're in Ireland. So, yeah, I suppose in theory it could be a bit of a quick flight. So maybe they've got, who they got at the Stormers that could be? Maybe got Warwick Lunt. Imagine, tomorrow, Warwick Lunt at 15. Bang! I actually need to check the Stormers travelling squad, see if he has travelled. Sharks are also in Ireland. So Grant Williams and Ed van der Merwe have gone there. But maybe they've released Edward back, and we just haven't been told. So, yeah. So we've got Damien Delinde at 13. Little Angel B says Rassie is possibly going to mix and match positions. That'll be a surprise, maybe. Yeah, I'm thinking Sasha on the wing, Eden Hooker at 10, Morne van den Berg at inside centre, Kobus Reinach at outside centre, Damian Willemse on the other wing, Damien Delinde at full back, Andre Esterhuizen at tight head lock. And more in for that. NFR says, wasn't SC2 Imidabelele called up to Baby Box? So some of them trained and looked like Riley Norton. Again, we weren't even told about that, by the way. We weren't even told that they were invited to go and train with them. SC Rugby do not give us a lot of information, unfortunately. So, yeah, they were, but that was because the under-20s were over there on doing it. They were playing Ireland. So I think in that regard, they kind of just drafted them in. Maybe, I don't think we're going to suddenly see Cheswell Lewster on the wing this weekend. But again, we don't get told these things. We don't get told. So hopefully there are some surprises, but we haven't been told that there are. So who starts at 14? Your options are Kane and Moody, Kobus Reinach, and technically Damien Willemse are the players we have left in the number 14 jersey. And then after this, we'll go through it. Kid Cynical says, roof is closed, Tony Ball engaged, pick all out wheels. Well, I mean, it's, as I said, I don't, yeah, so I think you could, to be fair, the big thing for me is I think the lock combination might be different. The front row combination might be different. I think that's pretty bang on for the back three. I'm pretty sure it's pretty bang on for the halfback pairing. And Les Kruber starts at 9. Morne doesn't really come off the bench, hasn't really come off the bench much so far in his career. He's generally started off the box when he has played. Kenny Moody's going to have 25 votes. So he's going to go into number 14 jersey. And then we're going to go into who starts at 15 between Damien Willemse and Kobus Reinach. Maybe we'll throw Kwagga Smith in there. So I think we're pretty... Candy says, to be fair, I could see Reinach on the wing at some point. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's my only sort of saving grace is that if this is the genuine squad and they haven't brought anybody else in, if you've got Kobus on the bench, he can cover wing. And both wings cover center. And Sasha covers... The big problem is 10 and 15. If needs be, Sasha could go to 15. And... Sasha can go to 10. Sasha can go to 15. And Caden Moody could go to... And Andre Estes could go to 10 if we really needed that to happen. If Sasha gets injured, Damien can go to 10 and probably Caden Moody can go to 15 if that has to happen. So there maybe are those sort of options, assuming we haven't brought anybody else in. But we are going to put... There's an 8% for Kobus Reinach. That does make me chuckle a bit. But we are going to put in Damien Willemse into number 15 jersey, which means that is our side, people. So let me go and export that. Let me lock that in and bring that in as the image. And then we'll sort of break it down. I'll tell you exactly who's still left after we've picked all those in terms of who is in the original squad, pending potential late additions. I think Rassie Erasmus has probably been on the phone quite a lot this week, saying I need players. So if we look at it, not picked so far. So your options on the bench at this stage are Jan Grobelaar, Eben Etzebeth, Sia Khaleesi, Wilco Low, Ruan Nokia, Kwagga Smith, Gerard Steenekamp, Kobus Reinach, Asnat in Tlabakanye. That's literally it. Unless they've parachuted players in. So it's wild. So here Raheem says this game is going to feel like a deleted scene or lost episode. Still great for the victory lap. May the best my picks win. Yeah, you and me to hear. I tell you, I need to actually get on the phone and say, Rassie, if you've got like a secret for me here, come on, let me get to the top of that leaderboard. I can't have let it all the way up until the second last game. We can then be pipped at the end. It'll be heartbreaking scenes if that is the case. So that's the team we've picked. I don't think it's massively far away, in all honesty. I mean, it's pretty close to my team. I think the only difference is I've gone with, I think I've gone with Jan Koblar to start. But yeah, I mean, I think it could very well not start. I think if we go with the Bulls front row on the bench, with Wilco Low plays, and obviously Jan Koblar goes to the bench. But I'm thinking if Asnat and Klabakanya's coming on, maybe he'll come with Gerastelekab and Bongi Benambi. Who knows? Who knows? And again, it's all pure speculation. So we could see some very big surprises in the squad. And Jay says, guys, why are we looking at negatives all the time? Maybe we don't need extra players. Let's be positive for a change. Michael says, well, I understand now what you mean. No surprise, unless the 25th member is someone special. That's the only thing, is that there has been somebody else added to it. But yeah, it really is. It is not a lot. It's not a big squad yet. It really is a small squad. And of that, there's 4 locks. You know, there's 5 props. So we're expecting 1 prop not to play. We're expecting potentially both locks to play. I mean, sorry, all 4 locks to potentially play. And we're probably going to see all 5 loose forwards potentially play. So as we keep saying, unless there is a late call-up and we haven't been told about it, then that's kind of where we're at. So let's see what it looks like tomorrow. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. We will be live at 12 o'clock, which is when they are announced on the site. So make sure you come and join us there. Hopefully we get some surprises. Who knows? Maybe you've got Quine Horn at 15, Sebastian Slack at 14. Maybe you've got, what's his name? Henkel van Vyk at 13. You know, you could have some very interesting selections. But at this stage, that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, smash like the video.